Welcome to the Empowered Wife podcast, where it's all about fixing your relationship without your man's conscious effort so that you feel desired, taken care of, and special, even if your relationship feels completely hopeless. I'm Laura Doyle, and today I'm talking about how to stop the silent treatment. I'm going to share 3 steps to end the suffering when your husband won't speak to you. My guest, Ritu, was lost about why her husband was always working and never seemed to have time for her or the family, but she was truly shocked when he told her he didn't have the same feelings for her anymore. She figured he was going through a midlife crisis, but it wasn't until she made another kind of discovery that she got the breakthrough she wanted in her marriage. Then I'll be giving out the Worst Relationship Advice of the Week award. And once I point it out, you won't be able to unsee how terrible this commonplace advice really is. All that's coming up. But first, let's talk about how to stop the silent treatment. When your husband is giving you the silent treatment, it hurts a lot. I still remember how lonely it was when we had Cold Wars at my house. Your brain goes into an endless loop of thinking about how to get him to talk to you again. It gnaws at you and it colors everything else in your world. You've already tried begging and pleading and confronting, and none of that works. And giving him the silent treatment right back, that just creates a Cold War. So how can you ever get connected again? How do you stop these endless hostilities? Here's how to end a marital Cold War in a hurry. Step 1, examine your side of the street. Of course, the breakdown is his fault too. He's definitely responsible for his part. But to break the ice, a great question to ask yourself is, what can I see on my side of the street that contributed to this Cold War? You then have the key to the door you've been pounding on. When someone doesn't want to talk to me, it's usually because I've said too much or I said it too forcefully. I failed to listen and understand first, or else I got very attached to my view of things. In other words, I was disrespectful. For example, when my nephew wanted to quit a job I'd helped him get through a friend of mine, I told him he was free to leave if it didn't fit for him and that I trusted him completely to know what was best for him. So far, so good. But after that, I listed all the resources available to him that he hadn't taken advantage of, like speaking to his manager and to my friend about the challenges he was facing. And I assured him he didn't have to suffer in silence or give up. I reminded him it was a good opportunity. And the first part of the message was, I trust you. But after that, I wandered off into, but you're making a mistake. I'm embarrassed to admit I was not expecting the best outcome from his choices. I was expecting the worst. How disrespectful. So it should have been no surprise that once he quit that job, he completely avoided me. He probably feared my judgment or hearing that I was disappointed. I would have avoided me too. And I was disappointed, but not in him. I was disappointed for myself. I wanted to be the smart, important person who had helped him get an internship that would be a springboard to even better opportunities in the future. I was quite pleased with myself about that while it lasted. But of course, what I want most of all is for my nephew to be happy, and he wasn't happy at that job or with me. And that's because instead of hearing what he was trying to tell me, I stuck to my agenda for him. In other words, I wanted to be right. And it cost me connection with my nephew, which was a very high price. As a result, someone I'm crazy about was not speaking to me, just like the Cold Wars I had with my husband in the old days. And looking at my side of the street, I could see where I had something to clean up if I was ready to admit that maybe I'd been a tad bit disrespectful. If you find any mess on your side of the street, here's what to do with that and what I finally did with my nephew to thaw the ice. Step 2. Issue an apology. You might wonder about how you can get your guy to apologize when there's a Cold War. In the bad old days, when my husband and I were enduring wall-to-wall hostility, that's what I was waiting for too. Or I would attempt to halt the hostility, which you can read as make him talk to me again, by saying sorry repeatedly without saying why I was sorry. I was kind of like Scarlett O'Hara from Gone with the Wind when Rhett Butler tells her, "You're like the thief who isn't the least bit sorry he stole, but is terribly, terribly sorry he's going to jail." I didn't like to be in silent treatment jail. I felt like the victim of his abuse. But now I can see how I was also the perpetrator. I didn't realize it at the time, but I was often disrespectful to my husband too. He was my mirror in those moments, responding to me with defensiveness because he was so hurt and looking for ways to avoid further pain from the woman who vowed to love him, but used her words to slice and dice. In other words, he didn't feel safe around me. Yikes. And to be fair, I didn't feel so warm and fuzzy about him either. But since I couldn't make him apologize for his part, all that was left was to look at my side of things. That's where I found I had the most power to improve the atmosphere in my home. These days, I'm much safer to be around, and we haven't had a Cold War for many, many years. That's partly because I'm quick to scan my side of the street for respect slip-ups and to apologize for my specific transgressions. So instead of saying, I'm sorry if I upset you somehow, and then getting a negative reaction to that and insisting, I said I was sorry, these days, I use my trusty formula and refer to exactly what I regret, as I recently did with my husband. I said, I apologize for being disrespectful when I asked you when you were going to hire a new contractor. I deliver the message just one time. I also leave out the word if, which is like saying, I'm not saying I did it. You're probably just overreacting. Finding the humility to admit I was disrespectful and making amends for it can feel uncomfortable, but the results are empowering. I immediately feel more dignified and shiny myself. Instead of wallowing around in the dirt, I'm doing what's in my power to clean up. And that feels surprisingly freeing. And it seems to just melt my husband every time. When he hears those words, the safety is restored for him and the good times can roll. There's no need for him to stonewall, or my nephew, who seemed relieved when I apologized and showed up at my house shortly afterward. But there's more. Step 3, become a safe haven. Author John Harrigan wrote, people need loving the most when they deserve it the least. When your husband is actively shutting you out, it means he's angry. Under that anger is hurt. Always. In other words, he needs loving because he's hurt. And the most loving thing you can do is show him you respect him in words and deeds. Haley and her husband were talking about their son struggling to study vocabulary words over the summer. Maybe it's because he's in summer vacation mode and he's used to playing all the time, which makes it tougher, her husband suggested. Haley thought to herself, he's like that during the school year too. In the past, she would have said just that. But this time, she took a breath and said, that could be. Then something shocking and pretty sad happened. Her husband's entire demeanor changed. His shoulders relaxed, his eyebrows lifted. He smiled and said, you like my idea? Oh man, that about broke my heart, Haley confessed. These moments are helping me see that being right is just not worth the pain it causes him. Had Haley argued with her husband in that moment, it might not have caused days of silence, but it could have created the kind of pebble that stone walls are made of. Respect happens in ordinary moments like that. It's like putting intimacy in the bank. The safer your husband feels with you, the longer you'll go without a Cold War. Before long, you'll realize you haven't had one in a very long time. Your relationship will seem much warmer. The conversation will be easy and relaxed. Here's to keeping your home fires burning bright with your formidable power to choose respect. If you're wondering how to get started with fixing your relationship and making it shiny again, then you need a roadmap. Get 6 simple steps to follow that will set your relationship up for success. Discover 3 common mistakes that wives make trying to fix their relationship that just make things worse when you download my free Adored Wife Roadmap. You can do that at getcherished.com. Go to getcherished.com now to get your roadmap in minutes. My guest Ritu was lost about why her husband was always working, never seemed to have time for her or the family, but she was truly shocked when he told her he didn't have the same feelings for her anymore. She figured he was going through a midlife crisis, but it wasn't until she made a different discovery that she got the breakthrough she wanted in her marriage. Ritu, thank you for being on the Empowered Wife podcast with us today.
Thanks, Laura. It's my pleasure.
So tell us about what was going wrong. Take us back to the bad old days. How did you know your husband was having a midlife crisis?
So, well, Laura, it was more so after we had our kids. I felt completely lost. We had kids at an older age, and I decided that I would work part time and take care of the kids also, and kind of just took it upon myself. But I started feeling very resentful because he was never there for me anymore. He was just so busy with his work, and I just felt like it was just me doing everything, going to work, and taking care of the kids. And all he would do is come home in the evening and barely even talk to me or ask me how my day was, and just pretty much, eat dinner and go down to his man cave and do his own things, watch TV. And we barely ever talked. And it was just very hurtful. And I wasn't sure what was going on.
So you're like a single mom in a way, right? You're working part-time and you have a big job. You're a doctor.
Yeah, so yeah, I'm a physician, and I decided that after we had the kids that I would work part-time, and I kind of brought it upon myself because I really thought I was that superwoman who could take care of everything. But I still had the expectation from my husband too, who was still working full-time, enhancing his career. But why wasn't he there for me when I needed him? Why was it just up to me? We decided it together that I would work part-time. But yeah, I just felt really overwhelmed, and it would have been nice if he was there to help me at least in the evenings, or at least even talk to me and ask me how my day was. He just didn't care about me.
Hmm. And so did you try to get him to engage with you?
Oh, I tried so many things, except every time I tried to talk to him, it would lead into a big fight, arguments, and where he would just shut down. And I was kind of like the porcupine who just wanted my way. And I would ask him, what's going on? Why are you acting this way? Why are you shut down? I just kind of wanted to know everything. And there was just a brick wall in front of me, and he would never say anything to me. And it got really frustrating. And it felt suffocating, to be very honest.
Yeah. So was there a moment where you said, we can't go on like this. This is not working.
Absolutely. I wasn't sure why I was in this and why was he in it. I mean, he was there, but he wasn't there. And I almost, I just didn't know. I wanted to fix him. I wanted to figure out what's going on with him. Is he going through some kind of crisis, or what exactly is happening? Why is he not the same person that I fell in love with 26 years ago?
Yeah.
And yeah, it just not something didn't feel right, and he wouldn't talk to me.
And then he said those hurtful words to you.
Yeah, so there was a point where, during one heated argument discussion, I was just pretty much telling him what a victim I was, that I'm doing everything around here. You don't care about me. All you care about is your job and doing your own things. And, why are you not talking to me anymore? What's going on? And that's when he pretty much mentioned to me that he didn't have the same feelings for me anymore. And that was just like a dagger to the heart. And I had no idea where that came from, especially when I had been trying to talk to him for so many months.
Yeah. Yeah. Very hurtful. So you felt like there was a midlife crisis happening. That was part of the problem, because he was in his man cave. And
Yeah.
what else was he doing that made you think that?
Yeah, I really just felt that, he was so focused on his career that, he was spending more time going to all these meetings, presentations. He was working out more, taking care of his health, going out with his friends, actually, even when I wanted him home to stay and help me out. And he had time for everything else except me, pretty much. And his career was everything. It felt very lonely.
Yes, it sounds very lonely. And once you identified this midlife crisis, that might be the problem, what did you do to try to fix that?
Oh, I did so many different things, Laura. I just kind of went frantic on Google search and I started looking for different things, some marriage fitness programs, and I enrolled in that. It was a few month long program, and I tried to get him to join it too because it was never like he was going to leave me or anything, but I tried to get him on board with it too, to, okay, let's try to get this together. And I even emailed him those recordings from the program. I'm not sure if you ever heard those, but I was just going crazy with one program after another. So I did this marriage fitness program, finished it, and tried to incorporate that into our marriage. Some of it was good, some of it wasn't. It was more about, okay, go make sure you put a date night on the calendar, you know, and make sure you every Sunday plan out the week with him, do like a business meeting, you know, and make sure you do face-to-face communication. And if there's any problems, table those issues. So there was a lot of different things I tried. And then I also joined a program by this lady who was going to teach women how to handle a man who's going through midlife crisis. So I started listening to that after I was done with the marriage fitness program. It was kind of like I was just trying to figure out what exactly do I need to do to make this better. I was just in so much shock, you know.
Yeah, absolutely. And did this help? Did the business meetings and the date nights and the no?
I mean, maybe to a certain extent, but it became kind of like a chore, and it wasn't coming from the heart. I mean, some days were good, some weren't. I remember one time he came back from work and I had such a busy day with the kids. I kind of just didn't want to go out, and we still went out because it was on the calendar, and we had such a miserable time. We just didn't know what to talk about. We just wanted to be done and go back home and go to bed.
Yeah, yeah, I get it. Well, so eventually you figured out something else that did work for you. So tell us about that.
Yes. So as I was frantically going through the Google search, I was reading all sorts of books. I came across your name and the books, but I said, okay, why not? Let me just listen to the audiobook, because that's something I could start off with. So I remember getting the Surrendered Wife audiobook, which was the abridged version, and I listened to it on my way home from work. And I'm telling you, Laura, I'm even getting goosebumps right now because it was as if you were talking about me, this person who thinks that her husband is to be blamed for everything in her life, and then to find out, oh wait, maybe it's not him. And I was just in shock. Every single thing that you talked about in the book, it was as if you had written the book for me.
Wow.
And yeah, so then I came home and I downloaded The Empowered Wife, and I just started reading it right away.
So you felt some conviction. It sounds like you saw the world through new glasses.
I totally did. That's when I realized, oh my gosh, I'm doing this all wrong. He is actually a good guy, and it's not just him, and one of the things that I remembered that I loved in the book was, oh, don't tell your husband about this, at least for 2 weeks, start doing what the book says and just experiment with it and just don't let him know. And I did. I'm such a rule follower, that. And I just went right to it. And every single thing that the book said, I started doing it exactly the way you had mentioned it in the book, including self-care, respect, appreciation. And I kid you not, within 2 weeks, I started seeing the glimpse of my sweetheart that I thought was long gone.
Wow. What did you see? How did he respond differently?
So, so for me, I realized that I was playing such a victim role in our marriage, and when I started staying on my own paper and indulged in self-care like never before in a different way, because the self-care I was doing wasn't really fulfilling me, like going out with to coffee with friends and things like that. But I really just started making a list of making myself happy and started doing those 3 things every single day. And when he would come home, he would then see that I was actually approachable and not a porcupine, because I would smile at him and just casually say, "Oh, so nice to see you." And it was because I was fulfilled with self-care. And, so slowly, instead of going down to his man cave, I noticed that he had started enjoying the dinner more with the family. Instead of having a grumpy face, he would actually engage in conversations. And yeah, and he would still go down to the man cave afterward, but I changed my mindset to realize that even he deserves his self-care. Why do I need to begrudge his self-care? So I stopped going downstairs to have arguments about what's going on, why aren't you talking to me? But instead, I started doing a combined self-care with my kids, or I would listen to my music while doing the dishes, and then I would dance with the boys, just kind of engage them into my self-care. And it was so much fun. And I wasn't on his paper as much anymore.
And as a doctor, this actually kind of infiltrated your practice a little bit too, didn't it?
Oh, for sure. So I actually started asking my female patients, I see a whole variety of patients, and a lot of these women, even though I would treat their chronic diseases, they would also suffer from depression and feeling overwhelmed. And I just started asking them questions regarding self-care as well. And that was a whole new concept for them. And I would actually leave the room to go see another patient while I would have one of my patients make a list of 10 things. And then I would go back and review it with them and make an agreement that, okay, you got to do this every day, at least 3 of them. And then we'll meet again. I'm not going to put you on medication right now. I mean, I would if they really needed to, but this really has made a big difference with a lot of my female patients.
And so how did teaching your patients about this, or kind of giving your patients some accountability about their self-care, how did that impact your relationship?
So yeah, as soon as I started doing this, I knew I had to be accountable. If I'm preaching, then I better practice what I preach, literally. So yeah, every time I would slip, there were days that I would just slip and not do what I should or maybe do. And but I held myself accountable too, and I kept on the path. And to this day, I still have a self-care list. Every morning I look at it and I make sure it's done. My kids are on board with it. And sometimes if I get cranky, my kids hold me accountable, because then they ask, "Mama, you're a little cranky. You must not have done your meditation today or yoga today." so so for them also, they know how important self-care is. And they do their own self-care too. Our entire family is about self-care now.
Oh, I love it. I love it. Well, and so how did that impact your marriage?
So, it impacted it greatly. I think the first step was for him to feel comfortable to start talking to me again. And he saw that I was getting happier on my own. And to think back, there was one time that during one of his trips, he came back and he brought me a happiness journal when things weren't that good with us. He just wanted me to be happy. And I still remember I felt so touched by it, and I just felt so empty inside that, oh my gosh, what's wrong with me? Why can't I have everything that, I'm so grateful, but I'm still not happy. So once he started seeing that, he was also able to pitch in a lot more, and he wanted to make me happier. And he started taking the kids to school in the morning, just did all these things, which he used to do before, but I started noticing it more. And I would start texting him and say thank you to him for doing this for me so I could have more time to myself. And I made it a habit every day that every time he would do anything for me, I would shower him with gratitude. And the more and more I started doing that, the more and more he started feeling very comfortable and being there for all of us. The business trips became less. He stopped going out with his friends as much. Or if he did that, I wouldn't make him feel bad about it. I would do my own things either do my own things or go out with my own friends. He always told me to go out with my friends. So a lot changed. He started cooking for us more, especially during this quarantine too. He made it a habit to cook all the meals for the weekend. I would just have to express my desire, and he just took care of everything. He takes the kids out whenever I need a break. He takes them out an entire day. So much has changed. Our entire life has changed.
It sounds like it. It sounds like it. So if you could go back in time and talk to Ritu from those challenging times that you were feeling so alone, like he was having midlife crisis and you weren't getting any support as a wife, what would you say to her? What do you know now that you would say to her then?
I would say, figure out a way to stay on your own paper. He's a good man. And I really just had to do whatever he had been telling me pretty much since we met. He wanted to see me happy. And I just depended so much on him for my happiness that once I found out how to make myself happy, I would tell that there is hope. All you got to do is just stay on your own paper and really just take care of yourself. That's all it takes.
And then what's a tip for a woman who's feeling similar? Like she's the mother of young kids like you are, and she has a big job like you have a part-time job, but it's a pretty weighty job. Just that, right? Just kids and a job, period. It can be kind of exhausting. What's your tip for her if she's also feeling lonely and not supported in her marriage?
I think I'll say what has worked for me. Once I dove down into the skills and in fact became a coach.
Yes.
Because of that, I think my tip would be is that if one decides to go with this path of the skills, to really just have complete faith with these and choose faith over fear. Because I know for me, every single skill that I have learned, practiced, and preached, every single one of them has worked for me. And there is just choose faith over fear, and it does get better.
Uh-huh. It's true. You are a coach now yourself. This is how much it meant to you. And how do you think that has impacted your life?
Same as I've said before, it's being that rule follower where I have to practice what I preach. It holds me accountable.
Yes.
The best self-improvement project ever. And all I had to do was take care of myself.
So this was really more about you, but it does sound like it cleared up his midlife crisis.
Definitely. Yes, it was me maybe that was having one.
I love it.
No, he's amazing. He's just the same boy that I had fell in love with many years ago, and we studied together, and he's always been there for me. I just went away for a bit, and now I'm back.
Wow. And you're glowing as I look at you and the smile on your face. It doesn't look like you are suffering or suffocating the way that you once were. So congratulations to you on transforming your marriage. And I'm guessing your whole family is benefiting from it. This has been wonderful to hear the whole story. So thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Laura. I owe so much to you. Thank you.
If you're wondering how to get started with fixing your relationship and making it shiny again, then you need a roadmap. Get 6 simple steps to follow that will set your relationship up for success. Discover 3 common mistakes that wives make trying to fix their relationship that just make things worse when you download my free Adored Wife Roadmap. You can do that at getcherished.com. Go to getcherished.com now to get your roadmap in minutes. And now it's time for the Worst Relationship Advice of the Week award.
It's the worst relationship advice of the worst relationship advice. Yeah, it's the worst relationship advice of the worst relationship advice of the week.
And the advice that's got me livid this week is from a marriage, family, and sex therapist who says, my marital status does not impact my knowledge, wisdom, empathy, or ethics. I am not making this up. I know this may sound so preposterous that it must sound like I am, but I'm not. This was shared on social media and then reprinted in an article I came across. And her point is that it doesn't matter if the person you're paying to show you how to have a shiny relationship has one herself. Ridiculous. So if she happens to be single, for example, or have a painful sexless marriage, or is going through a divorce or having an affair, that doesn't mean she isn't qualified to help you with your marriage, family, and sex life. Whew. And the crazy part is she insists this is not an ethical issue when it absolutely is. This is where I just want to push the desk over with everything on it and storm out of the room in a fury. I recently heard New York Times bestselling author Robert Kiyosaki talking about taking calculus in school and asking his calculus teacher if he was ever going to need calculus in the future. And the teacher said, no, probably not. So then Robert asked the teacher if he ever used calculus himself. And the teacher said, no, he didn't. And then Robert asked why he taught calculus. And the teacher said, because I get paid to teach it. So Robert Kiyosaki realized his calculus teacher was out of ethics because he was teaching something that he himself didn't practice. He called him a fake teacher. In the same way, only someone who has a happy marriage can show you how to have a happy marriage. And if you don't know someone's marital status, well, how do you know that's not a fake teacher? And when you need help with your marriage, you can't afford a fake teacher who might make things even worse. A woman who has a happy marriage has real knowledge and wisdom on that topic. That's who I learned from. That's who you want to get help and support from when your marriage is struggling. And a woman who has had a breakdown in her marriage and learned how to fix it so it's playful and passionate again is going to have incredible wisdom and empathy to impart. And that's invaluable when your intention is to fix your relationship, to make it shiny again. And for that reason, the advice that a marriage therapist's marital status does not impact their knowledge, wisdom, empathy, or ethics is the very worst relationship advice I have heard all week. Listen and subscribe to the Empowered Wife podcast. Next week, I'll share how to stop raging for good. I hope you're having lots of fun. Today's fun fact is that whenever Catherine Russell's version of All the Cats Join In comes on at our house, we stop whatever we're doing and swing dance.